Good evening, and welcome to everybody who has joined us for our first in our series of Building Bridges and Caring Communities virtual town halls. Tonight, we're going to be talking about effective community policing, and I will be your moderator and host. My name is Denise Waldrep. And I think you know me as a teacher and an artist. And lately, you know me as a candidate for South Carolina House District 13. What I want to do with this campaign is to help shine a spotlight on areas of growth in our Greenwood community, our communities, because we have Hodges and 96 and Ware Shoals. And tonight we're talking about a topic that I was introduced to in some wonderful meetings with a group called C3. And it is a group of Black and white faith leaders who are building bridges between races in our Greenwood area. And I've met some wonderful people through this. And modeling after those wonderful conversations, we're going to have a conversation tonight on how communities can be reinforced and built even better by our policing community practices. And so we're going to have a minute or two for each of our panelists to introduce themselves. We're going to go in alphabetical order. First, we have our Provisional Chief of Police for Greenwood, TJ Chaudoin. So TJ, take a minute or two to tell us about yourself.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Ms. Waltrip, for having me. I think it's very important what you're doing with this meeting, as well as our group of pastors and other leaders in our community coming together. But my name is TJ Chaudoin. I'm the current acting Chief of Police here at Greenwood City Police Department. I've been in law enforcement since around 1995, and I started off as a regular patrolman and worked my way all the way up. A lot of my career was spent in detectives and narcotics and investigation purposes. But that's the gist of my career, you know, and it's just an honor to be here and to lead the men and women here at the Greenwood Police Department.
And we're so glad to have you here. Thank you for your service and your work. And next we will have Jamar Crawford. He is the Director of Next Level Lifestyles. So Jamar, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Hello, everybody. I'm Jamar Crawford. I'm the Director Organization of Next Level Lifestyle, youth organization here in Greenwood, South Carolina. I've been a leader in this town and for about 13 years that our program has been going. So, you know, we work on everything it is for developing the youth for the next level of life. And that's ages of 8 through 24, you know, years old. People here 24 years old, it's like, wow, they're adults. No, they're still youth at 24 years old.
Yes, and so when you say next level lifestyles, what are some of the specific activities that the young people do when they're working with you?
Well, you ready? You ready?
Yes.
All right. Well, well, we do a lot of different things that prepare them for the next level of life, and our base is based on fitness. But you know, that's that avenue and that gap that you know we have to fill to give kids something they're able to do, to be able to mentor them in something that they want to do instead of something that we want them to do. And that's how we bridge that gap in actually mentoring them to prepare them to the next level of life.
That is a wonderful service and a wonderful calling for you. And thank you so much for that. And Tyra as well, do you work with that as well?
Absolutely. I think our main goal is to like he said, lead them through sports, but also we definitely emphasize the importance of giving back to the community and serving others through our work. So I think that's a really big part of what we do. Jamar always tells them that the fitness aspect is only 10%, and giving and building your character is the other 90%. So that's something that we also stress to our youth here.
We definitely need more emphasis on that. Thank you for that. And now we have Annette Edwards, who is a minister with the Oldfield Bethel AME Church. Annette, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hello, thank you for this opportunity and this privilege, Denise, for inviting me to be a part of this town hall. Of course, my name is Annette Edwards, born and raised here in Greenwood, South Carolina. I'm active here in Greenwood, an advocate for the voice of Greenwood in some communities. I'm a pastor of Oldfield Bethel African Methodist Episcopal Church. I also started what they call skits, Sisters Connected in the Spirit Women's Conference. That was going for 15 years in the community when no other women's conference was going on in the community. It was a conference that brought women together of all walks of life, all different races, nationalities to come together, bringing in speakers from different parts of the community and outside of the community. And also I served on the Greenwood Chamber as an ambassador, and I was a mentor to the inmates up there in the detention center.
So you have a wide range of outreach there.
Yes, ma'am. That's correct.
Wonderful, wonderful. All right. Well, we are going to begin. We're going to ask 3 questions tonight, and one question for each of our panelists. And after they answer the question, we're all going to join in a discussion of the question and just enrich our knowledge and our ideas about each topic. And the first one is for Pastor Edwards. In your work as a minister and community activist, what are your insights into what are some of the root causes of problems challenging our local communities?
Thank you for the question, Denise, which is very much needed to be asked. Some of the challenges I see in the community is, number one, that we know is the violence of guns. So many young lives that have been, lost at the tragedy of guns. So many cases that are, have been still remain unsolved. And I know the police officers are working on these unsolved cases. I think that's a challenge for our community because people are afraid to come out of their homes, especially our seniors. When I see they go in and shut up early than they normal because of the violence in our community. Another challenge, I think, is because of the violence, because there's no opportunities for some of the people live here in Greenwood. In other words, when I say no opportunity, they can't get a job because maybe of a past record or because they dropped out of school. They don't have an opportunity to say, hey, I may have not finished school, but I do have a skill. I think if we had some trade schools like what, for instance, like Jamar is working towards, now he's doing a trade, and I'll let him tell his own story. But I think if we had some more trades here in Greenwood that would give these guys, opposed to on the streets, doing illegal activities because they can't get an opportunity. I think another challenge we have is trying to build that bridge with the community and the law enforcement. They don't have any trust. When I often tell them, I go in the community pretty much and I sing this song that they're not your enemies. They're here to help you if you just trust them and open up with them. And that's what I find myself doing a lot of times, Denise, is when I see police have pulled over someone that I don't even know, and I ask, is what's going on? And they, most of them tell me what's going on. And then I ask the victim that they're talking to, is there anything I can do for you? Do I need to call one of your relatives? Or, if you need to talk to me, here's my number. I just try to help encourage them that they're not your enemies. So I found that there's no after school activity for a lot of the young kids. And that's another reason why Jamar has that program in place, Next Level, to give them something to do after the school, not just our mentor program, but activity. They need activity as well to go with that, Denise. And those are some of the challenges I think that we see that we have in our communities. And the last challenge I see is that a lot of our community are trash. And when I say trash, a lot of trash and stuff they throw out the house is still laying on the side of the road. You know, the rentals are not keeping up their property as they should. And that just discouraged that whole community. So I find those are challenges that I talk and I see every day in this community. And I think we can do better.
Thank you, Annette. Chief Chaudoin, do you want to jump in and talk some more about what Annette has, Reverend Edwards has brought up for us?
Yes. First of all, Miss Edwards is exactly right. And a lot of stuff that she said was point on, you know, and talking about trash, you know, it goes back to, in law enforcement, we call it the broken windows theory, which is basically if you throw a piece of paper down and somebody walks by it, they're more likely to throw a piece of paper down. Same way with an abandoned house. If somebody breaks a window, people walking by may be more likely to break the window because it's like nobody cares. And she's absolutely right. You know, we need to do a better job as a city together of cleaning up some of our areas, especially areas that remain any type of graffiti on them. And Mr. Jamar and his group, that's just one example of things that we got to continue to do, because that's so important in our community to get our young people to move to another direction. But we also got to build that trust between law enforcement and our citizens. And that's where it's going to take people like me, Miss Edwards, Mr. Jamar, and all of us getting together and working together to come to a common goal, because we don't have the right answer in law enforcement all the times, but all of us together can come up with the right answer and what's best for our community.
Yes, it is going to be necessary to bring many groups together. And I have a question, just as, you know, a person who doesn't live, you know, I live in a neighborhood out in the county. I don't have many activities that would bring me into contact with a lot of the young people, but I know that there are a lot of people like myself who are looking for opportunities to contribute and join in. So do you guys have some suggestions about how all of us in the community can get involved?
I think there's a lot of things we can do, and Jamar probably has some good ideas along with Annette. You know, litter pickups, any type of interactions, community cookouts, you know, any of these things that, you know, instead of doing once a year, doing the back to school stuff where, you know, all the neighborhoods come out together in different neighborhoods and celebrate. You know, why can't we add that a little bit more and add different communities coming together, not just your community, but every one of them coming together? I'd really love to see more interaction that way. You know, having more events at, you know, different parks in the city to establish the park cleanups. I know getting the park there on Gage Street, you know, it could use a lot of work. I know Reverend McCray and some of his people are doing a great job of cleaning that up, and trying to find some financial gain towards stuff like that, because things like that is very important in the community.
And I think one of the other things that we can do, Denise, along with what Chief TJ have just said, is that, you know, with me being a pastor, that I can take this ideal to the African AME Church, African Methodist Episcopal, and say we adopt a highway. That would be another way that we can get involved. And like you said, not just do it once a year or just because our community do it, but as a whole, because we live here and we got to bring the community together. And that's what our theme is tonight, is building bridges in communities. So I think that'll be another great way that if a church will take on, adopted a highway, and this is what we clean up in communities and highways as well.
Absolutely, as well. Oh, go. Absolutely. What TJ said, you know, that's so important, and that's what we always stress to the kids about building, you know, relationships as well as within the community. Like TJ say, with trash pickups. We did a trash pickup with the mayor, and that was excellent. our kids met more people, in that field. And that give kids too that avenue of saying, maybe that could be me one day, things like that. And it's well like, and there's, this meeting go on, that's what I want to, stress about, the community effort as well as a whole, So that's so important. That's so important.
Yes, it is. And I know that the mayor's wife, she has a trash pickup activity the Saturday of every month. And we've been working in Engage Street Park. And so, and Jamar, how can we find out, how can we keep up with what you're doing and anything that we can do to help you?
We have a Facebook page, Next Level Lifestyle, that we share a lot with all our activities that we're doing. We ask people in the community, which they've been doing a great job at, just basically, anything that we feel like we can help to actually build relationships, to reach out, and we'll do the best we can with actually, making an effort to come together and do different activities. So, that's how y'all can, find out what we're doing through our Facebook page. And we actually now working on a website as well. So that will be available too as well.
And where is your facility located?
We're right below the Civic Center across from Clayton Homes on Highway 72. It's Highway 72, 1715 Highway 72, 221E. Right across from Clayton Homes.
Thank you. We'll look forward to, is this a new facility that you're developing?
Yes, ma'am. It's right beside our original center, our original center. And what we are opening up is actually a trade center. Give the young adults, that gap. Like I say, our goal is to prepare them at every level it is to the next level of life. And give kids that gap on, we're going to encourage them to go to school. We want them to go to school. But, school ain't for some people, and we want to make sure that a kid feel like if they don't go to school, that they don't fail themselves, So we want to teach them this trade on, that making sure that they are doing the right things. Or some kids are lost, don't know what they want to do in life. So we hoping with this trade center that a kid will find interest in something, that they want to do, as well as when they go off to school. They'll know you're teaching them a trade so they can make money the right way, because of the thing about it is a lot of kids go off to school and most kids come back because of the lack of funds. I've been doing it 13 years and I have seen it a lot of that. A lot of times that the family can't support them, and they get frustrated. They can't find jobs to deal with their schedules or to accommodate their schedules. So it's a different trade, and I found out that, a lot of my kids that actually go off, they make money by like cutting hair. They make money by changing oil, different things in the trade field to show them that, show them how to make money the right way early on in life.
Mm-hmm.
And that's for boys and girls.
Boys and girls. Thank you. All right. Let's move on to another question. And this is for Chief Chaudoin here. What is exactly community policing, and how is your nationally certified police department implementing it?
I guess first and foremost is exactly because different people have different explanation of what exactly community policing is. And community policing, sometimes you'll hear it called community-oriented policing. Excuse me. My video keeps going in and out. But all it is a strategy, a type of policing that focuses on building ties to the community and working closely with members of the community. And the main focus or the main goal is to bring the community together, to work with different areas of the community, where it be businesses, different groups like Mr. Jamar's, like, the different churches, to bring all those communities together to help create a partnership and create strategies that could help us have a better place to work, live, and of course play here in Greenwood. I can tell you community policing is the center of what we do here at the Greenwood City Police Department. We start from day one with the PTO program, and that's our patrol training officer program. So when we first hire an officer, the first thing they have to do is go through 4 weeks of in-house training here at the police department before they go to the academy. Once they go to the academy, they're going to do 8 weeks at the academy. Then they're going to come back to the police department. Once they come back, then they start our training program, which lasts about 6-8 months, almost a year. But that program sets up, the first thing they're done on their first day is assigned a neighborhood, and we call it Adopted Neighborhood Program. That's where they're assigned a neighborhood to go into that neighborhood and make contacts and work with individuals and see what they can do to bring the police department and the community together. And at the very end of their training, they actually have to go in front of a board and they have to present their findings, and they have to show what they did. And then they also have to give solutions of how we can better our relationship with the community, what their issues, because we all know every community is different about what their needs are. And then, of course, you know, so they go through that whole program and during that whole time. And then after they're out of the program and they go on their own as what we call a solo officer, well, they're still, you know, in charge of that neighborhood and starts to work with that neighborhood. We have created programs like tomorrow, if you hadn't seen, on our Facebook page, we'll start the new thing called the Chief's Corner. That's basically another community outreach program to further try to get the community involved and kind of give them a little example and some information about what the police department's doing. We got the ambassador dog, which is basically a mascot that we've put in a grant for and got paid for. So we're hoping to get that sometime around October. That's going to be nothing but to help us go to community events and speak to community events and work with children, because we look at our youth as a lot of stuff, but I look at our youth as who's going to take over the law enforcement aspect, who's going to take over, you know, our doctors, our lawyers, all of our people in our society. So it's so important that we get in there and we meet with our community and we come together and they understand the police department and the police department understands them. Because a lot of people don't look at police as people, you know, and although we do a great job and we're nationally accredited through CALEA, which only about 10% of law enforcement people are, and we actually have the highest standard that CALEA can give, which is probably less than 2% of the police departments. And, you know, and people tell me about police reform, and they're exactly right, because there is a lot of things, you know, and I use the example of especially military. When you join the Army, no matter where you go, you're trained the same way, and you're showed how to do things, and you're trained the same way, and those expectations continue to grow. Well, in law enforcement, it's different. Every state trains different. Every agency trains different. Like my PTO program lasts a year, our training program. Man, unfortunately, in South Carolina, it's got to get out of this, which is something I'll push you. But we need to say no police officer can be on our streets and have any arrest powers until they've completed the Criminal Justice Academy. It makes no sense to make somebody a police officer before they've been through the academy, because it's going to create something that's just not good. And all of those things are just steps, you know, that we can go, because I want the community to trust our people. I want my police department to be a community service police department, meaning if you could call 10 police departments to come help you out with a problem, I'd want you to call mine. Because, you know, when we get there, we're going to do things right, we're going to be professional, and we're going to act right. And those are one of the standards that I hold my guys to.
Very, very high standards, and we're proud of that in Greenwood County. And how about Jamar and Annette? Tell us what you've seen as a result in our communities with the community policing. Are you familiar with any of the officers that have been assigned to the neighborhoods? And what do you think is working, and where do we have room for growth?
All right, you want me to go first, Miss Annette?
Go ahead.
All right.
Age before beauty.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so when I hear community policing, and like I'm gonna piggyback off of what TJ said, you know, he basically, what he said with the program is basically what I was going to bring to the table about what we need to see more of, you know, by me dealing with the youth for so long. You know, I hear so many different, you know, stories, you know, so many different things. And like about me growing up, I remember, you know, basically when the police would come out and, you know, ride through the neighborhoods and basically, you know, with their windows down, will speak to us, you know, will interact with us, will do different things that like we need to see more of today. Because the thing, and what I'm saying is like the things that, you know, the stories I'm getting from kids, like, you know, that the reason why they don't trust police officers nowadays, because, you know, I have these discussions all the time, because that's our goal is, you know, to make sure that we bridge gaps, you know, and to get a better understanding of what the police or law enforcement job is, and how we explain to the youth that the police officer job is to protect and serve the community. And how I feel like that is you have to actually serve in order to protect. And when you're serving, you have to do different things for as, you know, different activities for the kid know that every time they hear a police officer or hear police, they don't fear or thinking bad. You know, they got to see the good, and that's what builds trust. Once they build trust, then that's when they know you're able to protect. And that's how they're going to allow you to protect them, you know. And that's, like I say, that goes back to, like, we need to see more of, like TJ say, you know, that these police officers to go into these different neighborhoods and be, you know, in these neighborhoods and what you call it, assigned to these neighborhoods and do more things like, you know, once a kid get off a bus, walk a kid home, you know, ask a kid how their day going, ask them what schools what schools they go to. So then, you know, once you know if a kid having a problem, you go to a school without a kid even knowing, and, you know, and that kid see you, so that kid gonna feel like, okay, you know, now I feel like somebody, somebody, I got love, or that person showing me the right attention, you know. So now they know the purpose of a police officer and not just the bad, because that's all like nowadays that kids know it's just bad whenever they hear police. Like I have a lot of kids that's in my program, they like, I'm not gonna say shell shock, but they have like, they have like mental problems when it comes down to police because of the simple fact that how they grow up, or how they grew up with knowing that every time they see a police, they see bad. They have never seen any good in them. And so, like I say, we always having these discussions because of the simple fact that, like I say, our program is designed to prepare them for that. So if they interact or come across a situation with a police officer, we want to make sure they prepared to know how to handle themselves, you know, and to teach them how you got to respect, you got to respect their situation. You got to understand that that's their job. But the better understanding where their job is, you know, actions is over word any day. You know, the police officer got to do a better job in actually showing them more good than bad. And like I say, you know, developing, like back in the days, you know, we used to have police officers, like I say, come through. They may have a sucker one day for us. They may have a lollipop. They may get out and do kickball with us. Developing those things right there, you know, they may roll down and want to speak to us, may put music on the loud, you know, speaker. Things like that kids got to have that good attention to build trust first. And that's what we learn every day about different strategies, different things that we build to get a kid. Got to get a kid to get their attention. You got to give them to buy into you first. And you got to make sure that you're giving them, because a kid, they looking for good attention or bad attention. And like I say, at an early age, you know, things stick to kids. So like I say, kids need to know the good as well, then not the bad for when they grow up. And I think that's what's going on nowadays, because now you're having a lot of young teenagers that's getting in trouble and things like that. You know, what I think what failed is when they took the DARE programs out of the schools, because of that, the DARE program, that officer can build that different relationship with that kid. And so that kid know them from school. So once that kid see them in their neighborhood, they know them from their school. Hey, that's the officer that came to my school, you know. And that was good. You know, there was a good in them that's showing that this police came to my school, you know. So things like that is, like I say, you pick back off what TJ said, is real important for the community. And by dealing with the youth and knowing that they are our future, that's the most important thing ever, to bridge that gap with the youth early on.
Yeah. And if I could, Ms. Waldrep, if I could just reply to Jamar's comment, he's exactly right. And that's something as law enforcement we got to do better. And I can remember throughout my 20 years, man, I'd be riding through neighborhoods and, you know, and people would stop me that was cooking out and say, here, come eat with us, you know, and I'd get out and have a hot dog or a hamburger and drink and laugh and cut up and get back in the car. That's probably how I started looking like this, all them cookouts. But, you know, he's exactly right. And we got to do a better job of getting back to that. And what we really need to do is make sure that our young people are, when we go to scenes and it is a drastic scene, let's say domestic violence, and we have to take dad to jail, we got to spend that extra few minutes of giving out a stuffed animal or a sucker or a piece of candy and say, hey, it's going to be okay. People make mistakes. You know, your dad will be home soon, you know, and build a little bit more rapport other than just seeing us grabbing their dad and taking them to jail, or mom, or, you know, vice versa. And that's something that we got to do a better job of.
I think something that was also important that you mentioned, TJ, was
Tara, come up closer to the mic so we can hear you.
something that was also important that TJ mentioned was the fact that a lot of people don't view police as people. And I think just working with the youth here, I've seen and felt that in light of the recent events that have happened in our world that have been on video for everyone to see, is that they don't feel like they're human or that their life is valued by the police department. So I think it will be an excellent thing for them to see from the police in Greenwood that this is not what we stand for. Although there are a lot of things going on in our world, we as a Greenwood police are wrapping our arms around you and we are here to protect you and serve you. So I think that would be a great thing to implement as well.
That's a perfect statement.
Yes, yes. Pastor Edwards, what do you want to say to us?
They stole all of my thunder. Tara stole my thunder. And Jamar, that's why he wanted to go first, Denise. But I'll just add this tidbit to, I think TJ first, I want to commend him on his heart desire, his passion to want community policing. I think it's very much needed at a time like this, which all we're hearing on national news, how police are mishandling their power. And I think what TJ has got in his heart, Denise, would be it's what the community needs around here, that they need to see that they're just not talking it, but they're doing it. And I'm very familiar with community policing. When we do our neighborhood association around here, we had an officer that was assigned to the neighborhood, but they've gone. And I really think community will become better when we can get back to community policing. And why do I say that? Because it's almost like if you see a giant walking the streets, people are going to respect and say, look, opposed to running and being afraid. So when people see police, or it's normal for them to walk in our community, it also, if I can be candid here, it also helps us do right. Some things we do that's wrong in our community, we do them because we know the police is not in our community, we can get by with them. But I think the police will help a lot of us clean up our lifestyles as well.
And Miss Edwards, Miss Waldrep, if I could just add one more thing, and I want to touch on what Jamar said, but this is my mission statement at the police department. And, you know, and we got the serve and we got the protect. But one of the most important things I think that we add to that is to care. Because if you don't care about people, then there's absolutely no reason for you to be in this line of work, because it's about caring for your fellow man.
Mm-hmm. And that's what community policing would do, TJ. It will let the community know that they really do care. They're not just coming now because of something we did wrong. When we do wrong, they're right there. But they are coming genuine out because they care and nothing has happened and nothing is going wrong. It's simply because now they are beginning to protect us. Now they're beginning to serve us and care.
Absolutely.
Chief, I would like for you to mention something about recruitment and the challenges of recruitment to get a force that looks like the people in the neighborhoods that they're enforcing or that they're watching out for. What would you say about that?
Well, and I think that's kind of where we're going to have to go with helping out with groups like Jamar's got going on, which is a great asset to Greenwood. but we got to do a better job of trying to reach younger people so they think, man, being a police officer ain't too bad. But we've also set up recruiting things where we're visiting all African-American colleges, like going up to Benedict College, to South Carolina State, to some of those trying to recruit. The problem I run into is, I'm recruiting for a small town and city to add African Americans, and although we're recruiting here too, we just don't get the applications because, to be honest, that same African American that I want to bring into my police force, well, guess what? The FBI, the U.S. Marshals, SLED, everybody's wanting. Like, I just lost a black female who went to a federal agency, and I can't offer her what the federal government offers her. Now, and I hate it because I had another black female that we just hired. But those are some of the things, and I think it's like Jamar was bringing up, if the police department gets involved with different aspects like his group, then these people are going to see, these young kids are going to say, man, I'd like to be like that. I'd like to be a police officer. But I will say there's also some areas that's hard because, like, one of my female police officers, she wouldn't take a patrol car home. So we gave her an unmarked car to drive back and forth because that stigma of being a police officer in the African-American community, and Jamar and Annette can definitely explain that better than I can. But sometimes that stigma, and she gets a lot of, she got a lot of pressure from it. So she felt more comfortable by not having a police car at her house than to have one at her house.
Okay. Anybody want to respond to anything that the chief said here in this?
I have a question for him, Chief TJ. What will it require? Could you just hire a person just to be a community police? Is that possible, or that's not possible? Will they have to do the whole full training?
Yeah, and the police part is what gets you. If you're just having a community person to help represent the police department, yeah, we can do all of that. But anytime you give somebody arrest powers, it's such a great power to take somebody's freedom away. We all know that. There's so much training involved in it and going through it that they would have to go through the whole thing in order to be a complete police officer. Now, to be a representative of the police department, that's a little different. And we're looking at bringing back maybe our reserve program to kind of help us out, to bring us, people into the community. There's several things that we've looked at to see how we can better that. But the problem I look at when I look at people that has tried the citizens is people say, well, they're not a police officer, they're just citizens. So, or they're buddies with the police department. They're representing the police department. Of course, they're going to be, they're going to be pro, law enforcement. And I want the community to look and say, I don't want the community to look at me and say, man, there's a chief of police. I want the community to look at me and say, man, there's TJ Chaudoin. He's a great guy. That's what I want.
Well, thank you for that back and forth there. And I like this concept that it's not just the people who are hired to protect and serve the communities that can make a big difference. It is the people in the community that can, be there for the police officers to, in some capacity, help take responsibility for an observance of laws and just a showing of respect for other citizens and neighbors. So our last question before we have a couple of questions from our viewers. So here's our last question. And this is for Jamar, based on your work with young people in our community, what do we need to do to help create a healthy environment for the development of our young people in the Greenwood area? And we've already touched on a lot of this, but if there's anything we haven't talked about, Jamar and Tyra, what would you like to add?
I'm gonna let Tyra speak on. Tyra would be good at that. Because Tyra is she just graduated, and I'm gonna let Tyra speak on it, and I'm gonna let Tyra tell you more about that. It touch more about that. Go ahead, Tyra.
And Tyra, we are having a really hard time hearing you, so you have
sorry.
to really speak up. Thank you.
As we've said before, I believe it just starts with building relationships. And we do a lot of things with our youth here. I think this would be a great starting point. I don't know how we go about it, but for the police department to come in and see in what capacity they can help working hands-on with youth in our community, just to strip away that stigma and let them see that the police are just like us and that they want to help, protect, and serve, but also that they're human just like us and that their life is valuable to them. So I think that.
And then I'm gonna touch up about what she said. That's because all our goal is to basically, to save them and to protect and serve. And I tell them, like, our goals, are the same goals as law enforcement, to protect and serve y'all, And like I say, that's why our mission is, when it's dealing with the police department or law enforcement, that's to show them, that they are just like us. That's why when we did that, we didn't get to do it this year. We wanted to do it, but COVID-19, hindered us from doing the law enforcement feeding. We did the law enforcement feeding year before last, just to show the community, that how we working together, and two, just to show them when they hear law enforcement, they're thinking that that it's the police, just the police, and we want to show them that you get the saying, that I don't need them, I don't need police, I don't need the fire. We want to let them know that, like, it's not just police and law enforcement. You have different, like, the fire department is law enforcement. The EMS, like I said, if you fall or you get hurt, who you call? You got to call the EMS. If your house get broke in, you got to call the police department. If your house catch a fire, who you got to call? So that's the gap we want to bridge in, to show the young people that, that we're going to work together as well as them. And our goal is too, which we're going to announce now, that we are trying to, like, we did the 5K last year. So this year, we are trying to indicate to get the sheriff department, the police department, the EMS, the fire department, all them involved into this 5K we doing. Them are the events like that how we can come together. That's the first thing that we talked about. And I said I want to speak on, like, them things like that, how we can come together as a collect whole, that to show them how we work together. And that's how, once the kids there, that's how you can build different relationships. Just like with one of my brothers, Sean Mims and Courtney Smith, like they did they do the basketball tournament every year, different things like that. So things like that is how we can bridge that gap, and showing the youth, different, showing them about police, what's the difference in, what the job is of police, and while the police there, they can talk to them, explain to them, I'm just like you, until they see, like I say, our motto is action over word. So they can see, okay, man, I played football. I did that. Man, I was, because like I tell a lot of kids, I'm the state in every, probably every low poverty neighborhood it was. I had my moment, that I was out there in the streets, all of that. So, and when you open up to them, that's how you build that trust and let them know that you are human just like them, So that's my input on that.
Hey, just for the record, I think Tara would make a great police officer, and I can send her an application anytime.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You.
Oh.
Yeah.
So I'm open Monday through Friday. You're more than welcome to come up here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, TJ.
You laugh, but I did talk to, not long ago, a very small-statured young woman who, when she told me she was a police officer, I was amazed. But she just has such a passion for her job as a police person in the community and reaching out and connecting with the people. So yeah, I second that, Tyra.
We can get her hooked up for Academy Day.
Yeah, absolutely.
I want to get to some questions that are coming in from our viewers. Before we do that, I did want to clarify something I said a while ago. When I said something about people in the neighborhood maybe taking ownership with a sense of respecting the laws and so forth, I am not encouraging vigilante type action, but what I'm thinking more about is neighborhood watch and programs like that where people are very aware of their surroundings and have good communication going between one another. So with that, I want to get to a question from Taisha. What are the proposed solutions suggested by officers assigned to rural areas in Greenwood?
That's going to be a hard question for me to answer because we only patrol the city. But that's probably something more for the sheriff to answer than me. But I think it's one of them things that it's still got to be community policing, and you still got, regardless of whether it's a neighborhood that's got 14 people or a neighborhood that's got 60 people, you still got to treat all the neighborhoods the same and together. You know, it's still got to bring them together.
Yes, and speaking of the rural areas, I'm thinking about Ware Shoals, 96, Hodges, and Troy. How much do you communicate with the police forces in those areas, those towns?
To be 100% honest with you, usually we do a lot of communication with some of them, but usually it's only a case-by-case basis. Now, we work tremendously, almost 24 hours a day with the sheriff's department because that's our neighboring jurisdiction. We have no jurisdiction in 96. We have no jurisdiction in Hodges. We really have no jurisdiction in the county, but because stuff overlap, we have groups. Our SWAT team is city county, our CSU city county, our drug enforcement city and county. So we work hand in hand with the sheriff's department every day. But usually with 96 and Hodges or Ware Shows, it's usually on a case-by-case basis.
Okay, and for those who may not know, what is the difference between the sheriff's department and the police department, and why do we have those two separate departments?
Well, the chief is a lot prettier than the sheriff, but actually we have the same goals. Sheriff Kelly's goes the same as ours. You'll probably see, and I'm just speaking from what I see. I've seen Sheriff Kelly out at more events and trying to bring communities together than I have any sheriff. He does a great job of going out and speaking to people in his community. He has his little watch groups where he has the meetings and talks because we got to, as leaders of our departments, we got to know what the community's feeling. I can't make a change in my department if I don't know where the problems are at that the community's seeing. And that's why it's such a great job to have stuff like this, but also to meet with people like Miss Annette, to meet people like Jamar, because Jamar, Annette, Tara, they can give me those feedback and say, this is what we're hearing from the community and from the young people, and this is what we might need to do better.
Thank you. Taisha followed up by asking, what's the proposed solution by officers within the city of Greenwood? As she mentions, a contributing factor of removing community resources from underserved communities in Greenwood. I think she's referring to the fact that over the years we have seen a lot of programs reaching out to underserved communities, more so than maybe we have seen just recently. Are there any goals for adding to services in those areas?
With us, we're going to go wherever the community asks us to go. There'll be, unless I have a family emergency or it comes during church time, there's very seldom a time somebody's going to ask me to be somewhere that I'm not there. And if I don't go there, I'll make sure one of us will be there, because every time we can talk to the community, out to the community in every aspect, that's what we want. But speaking and I listening to her question, she also hits a great point in the fact that we need more stuff for kids to do. And Jamar's agency is probably one of the best ones that we have around here in completing stuff like that. But, you know, the after-school programs, the football teams, unfortunately, we don't have the swimming pool and Seaboard Rec, but that was such a great area to have and to have young folks to go to. Because what we hadn't talked about, and which is another segment, is when these young kids get off the bus, you know, nowadays it's hard for parents not to work full-time jobs, and they get off the bus and, you know, and they're at home by themselves, they're going to do something. You know, so having something like Seaboard Rec, having basketball teams, having travel teams, you know, but all this stuff has to be funded. And, you know, and that's where you're getting into, you know, getting grants and trying to fund different things to create these things.
And so the writing of these grants, would that totally fall in your purview, or is that something that volunteer groups around town could start?
Yeah, there's a lot of different agencies that write grants. We write grants for law enforcement grants. Like we wouldn't get a Seaboard Rec grant, but like our ambassador, our dog that we got is off a grant. That we wrote a grant and we said, hey, this is what we want to do with this money. And the government, the federal government, they review it and then they say, that's a good idea. We'll give you that grant. And then they supply the money. And a lot of grants, the problem you have is a lot of grants are, let's say they might be 50%. So you want to get Seaboard Rec, and let's say it costs $500,000 to put it back up and running. And a grant might say, well, we'll give you half of it if the city pays the other half. And then, it's up to our city council people to see if we can find that and where we can find it at.
And I know that's going to be a challenge here in the age of COVID, because our revenues in Greenwood are going to be down. So funding is going to be down, unfortunately.
Yes, ma'am. I'm pushing for funding right now because I want to have a cookout. I want to go to Magnolia Park and I want to cook out for the residents and have my officers there cooking out and to serve the community, because like Jamar said, how they had the fundraiser for law enforcement, we get a lot of groups that cook for us, and I really want to return that by myself and the sheriff and our command staff and our officers being at these locations and cooking for the civilians some hot dogs and hamburgers. And so, so we're trying to put that together. But again, that comes with funding and trying to get people to donate. So that's a big area too.
Well, thank you for that. I have another question. I hope I'm saying this name right. Jalan asks, I hear a lot about parents teaching their children how to interact with police. Could the police teach them and their parents?
Well, absolutely. And I think that's one of the, that's a great question, probably one of the best questions, because we do need to teach children, especially young people, how to act when the police come there. And if they feel like something's not right, it's very easy in teaching our kids to say, can I speak to a supervisor? Or for the kid, look, if he writes you a ticket, just let him do what he's got to do. Don't argue on the scene. Don't make sudden movements. Don't be over aggressive, and start a conversation on the side of the road, because every one of my officers we have in-car cameras and we have body cameras. And I review I can't review every traffic stop, but I review almost every type of situation I can possibly from all of our different officers. And the main thing I'm looking for is to make sure, one, that the body cameras were turned on. Because if you don't turn on your body camera, we're going to have an issue. But our body cameras run 24/7. So even though they don't reach down and turn it on, the body camera's still recording. We have ours set up that way because if an officer does not turn it on, we can go back and create an event. But we do have a policy in place that says it has to be on at all times that you're having interactions with the community. So, I think that answered her question, but those are things that, we just need to have conversations. And I would be more than glad to come out to any group that wants to sit down and go over it. We have a program set up. It's kind of like a PowerPoint that talks about the do's and don'ts. But the main thing is just be polite if you don't feel like or just be professional, even if you don't feel like it's the right thing, that maybe you got pulled over and you don't feel like you should have, man, come up and see me the next day. Have your parents come up and see me the next day, you know, and let's review the tape. And that's one of the important parts about me having good communications with Miss Edwards and other leaders in our community, so they can come and see me and say, hey, this person complained to me and said this officer was rude to them. All right, let's go and find out. So, you know, so we can go back and we can look at the body camera and we can make sure that we don't have officers out there being that way.
All right, Jamar, Annette, anything else in our last couple of minutes?
Jamar, do you want to go first again?
No, you go ahead.
Again, I just want to say my final saying, I'm really looking forward to, I want to say this to TJ. When I saw the article that he had been hired as the intern chief, and I saw an article that he put out about community policing, and I have my degree in criminal justice from Lander University. Go Lander, Bearcats. And I really have a passion for my community. I really want to see the community striving. You know, I really want to see the law enforcement in the community. And when I saw that article, I went and spoke to TJ and told him about my passion, my drive for the necessity of an essential community police need. It is needed so much, especially in our communities. And when I say our, I mean our Black communities. I think our Black community need this. I think our Black community can do better than what they do. If they only just need that encouragement as we coming together as a whole, encouraging them, you know, to clean up their community, be gatekeepers of community. Don't allow folks to come in the community and bring your community down. You know, if you're a good neighbor, go to them and tell them, turn the music down. Go to them and tell them to pick up the trash. If you allow, you just as guilty as they are. So I appreciate this community policing. I've worked with Jamar with different things. I appreciate what he's doing for the community, what he's standing for, how he's keeping saving a lot of kids from going to jail. Jamar, kudos to you for doing that. A lot of times every February, I will invite him and I'll give him a plaque and let him know that as a church, as a pastor, I appreciate what he has done in our community, and that your work has not gone unlikely. And to be on the final note, Denise and TJ and Jamar, I'm looking forward to us as continue to work together in our community and not just be, as the Bible says, just not be hearers, but we actually are going to be doers. And there's a scripture in the Bible that I love to say, in order to be great in the kingdom of God, you first must learn how to serve. And that's what all three of us on this town hall meeting tonight is about, is serving all people.
That's great.
Thank you. A servant's heart, that's what it takes. Yes. Well, I think we're at our end of our time here, and I have learned so much tonight, and I hope all of you have. Thank you for this wonderful discussion, and I want everybody to know that we're going to continue having town hall meetings starting up in mid-September. Our next one is going to be about growing businesses in Greenwood in a pandemic era. How can we help with recovery and growth? And stay tuned to my Waldrep Works campaign Facebook page for who our panelists are going to be. I've just about got it firmed up, but I don't want to give it away just yet. So thank you again so much. Have a blessed evening. Be safe. And everybody, look out for one another. Love one another, okay?
Thank you, Denise. Bye.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you, Miss Edwards. Thank you, Jamar, Tara.
Thank you, TJ, for what you're doing. God bless you. Keep you safe.
Come see me sometime.
All right, I'll do that.
All right. Bye, y'all.
Bye.